to take into account municipal growth trends.
Thank you, Law.
Yeah. Is that okay? To take into account geographic and topographic boundaries, to be mindful of existing communities of interest, and to pay attention to equal representation and voter parity. We were asked to develop a ward structure or council governance structure that could accommodate growth and population shifts for a minimum of 3 municipal elections and beyond if feasible. So 2026, 2030, and 2034. Our work began in the fall of 2023. We started with data collection and research. The data collection concerned the governance structures and other comparably sized municipalities in Ontario, particularly at the lower tier level, but we also looked at municipalities outside of Ontario where we thought the circumstances warranted comparison. We also undertook an analysis of existing case research. This primarily concerned cases that have come before LPAT and the Ontario Land Tribunal and OMB concerning municipal electoral boundaries and council structures. And we did preliminary analysis in the fall of 2023, which involved our population projections, where we developed population growth models that took into account planned housing developments in Pelham, and spatially mapped them onto the municipality, and then began to develop ward models that we thought were defensible or suitable for Pelham Council. The preliminary report itself was presented to you on February 7th, 2024. In that report, we presented 5 different ward models for your consideration and for the public's review. 2 of those ward models involved a 3-ward structure with 2 councillors per ward, and the other 3 involved single-member ward models, where we presented a 4-ward model, a 5-ward model, and a 6-ward model. Following the presentation of our preliminary report, we conducted interviews with yourselves and with your senior staff. We held 2 public meetings, and we conducted a survey that was delivered online and in person at our public meetings. The result of that process is the final report, which you see in front of you today. Going through our recommendations, the first concerns the role of the selection of the deputy mayor. In the course of our interviews and during our public meetings and in our online survey and the survey results, there was very little support for the introduction of a directly elected deputy mayor, with the important exception that there was support for it in the event that Pelham was given 2 seats the Pelham Town Council was given 2 seats on Niagara Regional Council, and I'll save that discussion for the end of this presentation. We saw no reason to change the existing structure that you have in place, whereby the deputy mayor is appointed to a 2-year term following the municipal election and is then turned in the middle of that period. On the second, ward versus at large, there was very little support in any of our interviews or consultations for changing from the existing ward structure to an at-large structure. So we recommend that all councillors in Pelham continue to be elected from wards. Lastly, on council size, I would say the modal response, or the general view, was that the current size of Pelham Council is quite appropriate and should remain at 7 members. That was certainly true from our in-person interviews and in our public meetings. There was some support in our online survey for reducing the size of council, which isn't surprising. That seems to be kind of a prominent view publicly at times, that council should be reduced as much as possible. But generally, I would say the modal response was that the current size is quite appropriate and should remain at 7 members, and we concur. Our recommendations. Our first recommendation is to adopt the ward boundaries contained in our option 2, the revised 3-ward model that we presented in our preliminary report. The general consensus from our in-person interviews, our discussions with you and your senior staff, and in our public meetings was that the existing 3-ward model worked pretty well. The public seemed to like 2 councillors per ward. We saw no reason to deviate from that. There was support for leaving in place the existing 3-ward model and the current boundaries. When presented with the revised 3-ward model, I think there was general support that the revised 3-ward model improved equitability, both now and particularly in the future, by adding population to Ward 1 and moving the eastern boundary of Ward 1 to Effingham Street. Effingham Street serves as a boundary, we were told, for public school busing systems, and so there was a sense in which it already formed kind of a natural boundary in the community, and it didn't seem to unnecessarily divide any existing communities of interest more than would be deemed acceptable by sort of general standards. So our recommendation is to adopt the revised 3-ward model. It's a small change from the system that's in place now. The general view was that the system that's in place now works really well. There wasn't much support for dramatically changing it. The revised 3-ward model simply improves it and makes it a little fairer for voters and residents in your municipality. And there's the map of the revised 3-ward model there, which you'll have a copy of in the report in front of you. And then here are the population projections contained for the revised 3-ward model. As you can see, we're within basically sort of 10% of average ward population all the way to 2034. So that ward structure, the revised 3-ward model, can accommodate future population growth and population shifts quite well and wouldn't require revision or another ward boundary review for several years. Now, on to our conditional recommendations. As I mentioned at the beginning, there was discussion throughout our review process about the possibility of Niagara Regional Council being restructured in some way and what that would mean for the governance structures here in Pelham. The general view seemed to be that if Pelham was granted an additional seat on Niagara Regional Council, then that would provide a basis for having a directly elected deputy mayor who would then serve in that position along with the mayor. Our recommendation is that in the event the council obtains a second representative.
Yeah, I think I'm in now. Yeah, okay, that's good. Yeah, thanks. Okay, bye.
And that would be Professor Sank.
That's Andy. So we recommend if for some reason the province does restructure Niagara Regional Council and does away with directly elected regional councillors, in that sort of contingent future possibility, we recommend a new council configuration consisting of a directly elected deputy mayor and a directly elected mayor who would serve as your representatives on the region, and 5 ward councillors, with 1 being elected from each of the 5 wards described in our option 4. And so option 4 was developed for exactly this eventuality. It maintains the current council size, which most people seem to think work quite well. It does depart from the current 2 councillor per ward model, but it does provide a system which, in the case of wards 4 and wards 5, might provide ward boundaries that better encapsulate some of the communities of new residents to Pelham. If Niagara Regional Council was restructured in such a way that regional councillors, directly elected regional councillors, were abolished and Pelham was given 2 indirectly elected representatives on Niagara Regional Council, but council strongly wishes to maintain the three-ward system. The second option would be to continue, there's a five-ward model. Would be to adopt our revised three-ward model, electing only one councillor for each of those three wards, with a directly elected deputy mayor and mayor, giving you a council size of 5 members and 2 that would serve on Niagara Regional Council. Unless Andy has anything to add at this point?
I had trouble, can you hear me?
Yes.
I had trouble getting into the meeting, but Sarah helped me out with the passcode. Sorry to be late joining you, but I don't have anything to add because I didn't hear the beginning of Tim anyway, so sorry about that.
You've heard me a lot before, so. We're happy to take any questions you might have about the report or about the process leading up to the report.
Okay, so thank you for the presentation. I think it was an exercise that, even though the results more or less stayed the same, it was a great exercise to go through, listen to feedback from the community, and of course, in this day and age of the amalgamation or decentralization of the region, we always have to conclude that in the stargazing. So I'm glad that you indeed took a look at, if this happens, you might want to do that. So thank you for looking at that aspect. Yeah, other than that, my own thoughts is I like the final recommendations, staying with the 3. We are slated to grow, continuing to grow at some say a rapid pace for the next 20 years, and perhaps halfway to that goal, we may have to indeed take another look, and maybe then would be the time for a re-amalgamation or realignment of the ward system. I personally like the recommendation of moving Ward 1 east to Effingham Street, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I'll open questions up to council. And, oh, there we go, Councilor Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just at the end on page 12 where it says, if Pelham Municipal Council is determined to keep the 3 existing wards. And it says, while introducing a directly elected deputy mayor. And you recommend that we drop from 7 to 5 with 1 councillor elected from each ward. But if we've only got 3 wards, can you explain that? I'm just not grasping that. I don't know how we get to 5 councillors if 1 from each ward and we only have 3 wards.
Sure. Through you, Your Worship. The 5th councillor would be a directly elected deputy mayor.
Yeah, but it says keep the 3. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. The 5th councillor would be a directly elected deputy mayor.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? Not seeing any. You explained everything fully in your report. Thank you. Thank you for your time, and I'll turn to the clerk.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I do have a motion for council's consideration moved by Councillor Kerr and seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that council receive the presentation and the final report on the 2024 ward boundary council composition update and selection process for deputy mayor from Dr. Andrew Sankton and Dr. Tim Coben for information, and that the town of Pelham's deputy mayor continues to be elected by members of council for a 2-year term, with the term starting immediately after the municipal election and halfway through each 4-year term thereafter. And that all 6 councillors in the town of Pelham continue to be elected from 3 wards, 2 councillors from each of the 3 revised wards, and that Pelham Town Council maintain its current size of 7 members, and that the ward boundaries contained in option 2 of the final report revised 3-ward boundary model be adopted as the new ward boundaries for the town of Pelham, effective for the 2026 municipal election. To you for discussion and vote.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So that now moves us to our consent agenda, I believe. Request to lift any consent agenda items. This would be the opportunity if council wanted separate debate and vote.
Is there any consent agenda
Oh,
item?
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wink. I did miss the adoption of our previous minutes.
Okay.
So I have a motion moved by Councillor Eckhart and seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed and read. C-092024, regular council meeting, May 15th, 2024.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Nesling?
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Good morning. Just a little correction to the minutes. It was not when I mentioned congratulations to the quilt and the art festival, it wasn't the upcoming art festival, it was the art festival that had happened the weekend prior. So if that could be corrected, that would be terrific. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Changes will be noted. Any other omissions or additions? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
So now we'll move to item number 8. So if council members have any items on the consent agenda that they wish to lift for separate debate and vote, now would be the time to identify it.
Is there any councillor that would like to lift any of the consent agendas for separate discussion? Not seeing any, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I do have a resolution moved by Councillor Olson and seconded by Deputy Mayor Wink. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the May 29th, 2024 council agenda be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved. So moving now, perhaps we could deal with all the items, the 3 items listed under staff reports. So 911, 912, 9113.
Any councillor have questions, comments? And I see Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I just want to comment on the overnight parking of the transit vans at the MCC. We have 11 vans parked there, I believe, now, and we're at the cost of $70 a month for each one of them. But this is part of the direction that we're trying to take at the NRT to disperse the vehicles so that they're available early in the morning and late at night for people to use the van. So I'll be bringing a report to council on probably the next meeting about the developments at the NRT, which are important for the on-demand parking. You're not just the on-demand parking, but the on-demand service, and for the specialized services for people who are handicapped and unable to disabled and unable to use the regular transit. We now have another service. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. On that overnight parking, I thought that it was great that staff got involved in negotiations. They were going to go to St. Catharines, then we got negotiating with them, and we ended up with them back at the MCC. And I think that's great because at the beginning of the day, they start here in Pelham and go outward. So any comments from the Director of Recreation on this item?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, we were pretty excited to be able to have the vans parked overnight in the overflow parking. It seems to be working well, and as you said, it's a closer start, so perhaps a better service. And it is very limited timing, as we know, because there's a new service that's going to be starting, I believe, in July, but Councillor Olson can update us at that time.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions on 91, 912, and 913? Councillor Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. I'm not sure who it's directed to, maybe Ms. Van Ravensway, but the revenue generated from this, does this appear then at revenue generated by the MCC, or is it general town coffers?
Vicky,
Through you,
wanna
Mr.
try
Mayor, I am going to refer this over to
that? To the
Mr.
Deputy Treasurer. there.
Yeah, to Usama. Yeah, we arrange everything and they take care of the money.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, it would be part of the MCC overall revenues.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Counselor? If I see no other counselors with a question, I have one for 9.13. I've already informed the Public Works Director I was going to ask this question. I noticed that the bridge on Cream Street, it had an initial budget of $750,000, and you mentioned in our previous discussions that you had come back for an increase, and I was wondering if you could refresh our memory from $750,000 to just over $1 million. Could you go through that, please?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The original budget for the Cream Street Bridge replacement was $750,000. Staff tendered that project. The low bid came in at $993,762.60. Staff brought a report to council in June of 2023 requesting a budget increase of $331,616 for a total overall budget of $1,081,615. The total cost on the project for completion was $1,024,899, so $56,717 under the revised budget. The reason for budget increase from $750 to the $1,081,615 due to market increases at the time, excess soils regulations, just that's the way the market came in during the tendering process. So that's why the budget request was asked for additional funds to award the project and get it completed.
Okay, thank you. It is, I believe that bridge is actually, it's 3 big culverts that were installed. Is that right, sir?
Yes, that's correct. So we cover our bridges and major culverts under our bridge replacement program as part of our capital budget forecast. So yes, that's correct. It's called a bridge, but it's actually 3 large diameter culverts.
Thank you. Kind of scary that it wasn't too many years ago we did these projects for $350,000, $400,000, and now due to escalating costs that beyond our control, we're now up to $1 million. Wow. But yeah, you did mention in one of your comments to me that it was one of the reasons is for the new regulations about off-site dirt removal. Is that that does play a role in this also?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. So there are new excess soil regulations that are on all of our capital projects now would require any excavation material. So we undertake now extensive soil testing prior to the project being tendered to identify contaminated soils and where those soils can be disposed of. So this is a reflection of previous budgets that have now been increased with costs that have come under new legislation. One thing I will comment on is that the town has invested fairly substantially in its bridge and major culverts over the last several years. Staff we just completed our biannual inspections, which occur every second year. And so staff will be bringing a report to council on the status of that most recent inspection, and it's the overall condition network is improving from previous years. So the investments are paying off, and we'll be bringing that report to council, I think, in July. I think it's coming in July.
Excellent. Thank you for those remarks, Director. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Mayor. Could comment on 9.1.2, and that's the thank you correspondence from the Fenwick Lions Club with respect to a grant they received and the equipment they received in the kitchen. And I want to point out to council that this is the second grant that our community has received from Farm Credit. The first grant was for the Lions Club for $49,000 for a walk-in freezer that's yet to be installed, but it indicates that our relationship with the St. Catherine's Office of Farm Credit is very good. And they're seeking to support our agricultural community and our rural community with these kind of grants, so it's much appreciated.
Thank you, sir, and I believe you made the mistake of attributing the walk-in freezer to the Lions, and it was indeed, I believe, to the Legion.
That's correct. That's correct, Mr. Mayor. That's what I intended to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on these three items? Not seeing any. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So then we could go to 9.2.1, just information correspondence from the Ministry of Natural Resources about their rabies vaccine program.
Okay. Any questions, comments on this program? Not seeing any, Mr. Clerk.
Then we could go to 9.3.1, the Audit Finance Committee recommendation letter.
Okay. Any comments on this letter brought forward by the Pelham Audit and Finance Committee? Councilor Olson, I believe you're on that committee.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm on that committee with Deputy Mayor Wink and Councilor Eckert. So, and we were all in attendance and passed this motion. And I just wanted to point out to our residents that this is a good news story, another good news story coming from Finance and Audit because of the hard work of our staff, I'd have to say, because our net debt has declined. Our eliminated the short-term debt, which always appeared on our statement, and the goal was to eliminate it this year, and it's now paid off. And the change in our accumulated surplus last year was 7.5 million. This year it's 9.2. And all these changes are working towards a much more stable and financially tolerable situation for the town. And I believe that staff should be congratulated for their work, because this wouldn't happen without the effort of staff and considering every payment and its indications that our cash flow takes a paramount importance to our staff and to this council. So I just wanted to point that out. I have no questions, Mr. Mayor, but that was my comment.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Olson. And I believe council will join with you in congratulating staff for finding efficiencies within the system to keep our expenses as low as possible. Any other comments on this? Not seeing any. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So that wraps up with the items under the consent agenda. So there is a resolution before council if you're prepared to make a vote.
Yes. Okay, so I call the question to vote. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So now moving to item 11, presentations and reports. So we have a member of council report. We have Councillor Kerr, an update on the Niagara Central Airport.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kerr, you have the floor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Being on the commission has been a learning experience for me, so I'm just trying to make sure that everybody's kind of brought up to speed as to where we've gotten to. At the last council meeting, I talked about three upcoming events that COPA was running, the Discover Aviation, and some other things that had happened as well. Councillor Eckert, I know, had attended the Air Cadet installation, which, due to inclement weather, they had to relocate from the airport to the Valley Community Center in Port Colborne because of the thunderstorm. So it wouldn't look good to have the cadets out in a thunderstorm on the tarmac at the airport. So that was kind of a change. And I think Councillor Eckert had a good time at it. I'm sure he did. A couple of things in here. As all we're aware, there was an ombudsman review at the airport, and all of the recommendations have been undertaken. We have a formal recording secretary. Everything's done according to the Municipal Act. The publication of all of the agendas and the meetings and the minutes are available. So now they're posted online. The website is up and active and available. Similarly, all of the financial statements and audited materials are also posted on the website, so anyone can go to them to take a look through. The overall budget of the airport is not, when I think of the budget for the town of Pelham and I think of the budget for the airport, it's pretty, the budget of the airport doesn't match the Cream Street culvert replacement. Culvert replacement, so a single item at the town level is well beyond what the airport's at. We did have some challenges, and I think it was brought up as well here. This asset retirement management plan was kind of thrust upon the airport and not having had it done before. So they had to go through it. So that kind of delayed the release of the books and everything else to everyone. But that was completed through, actually through the assistance of the Township of Waynfleet that had gone through it and had some protocols that they could quickly adapt for it. So I admit them. What was of note is that the municipal subsidy expenses, in other words, the amount being charged to the communities, the 4 communities, which are Welland, Port Colborne, Waynfleet, and Pelham, have dropped from 56% in 2019 to 24% in 2024. That's a good thing. I mean, that means we're moving in the right direction to go to almost our hope at the commission is go to a point where we don't have to seek any funds from any of the communities to make the airport operative. And where that has kind of come into play is the hiring of a new facility operator. And I want to highlight that to you. Mr. John Roy has come to us. He has an extensive background with Rogers, actually in advertising and sales and everything else and promotion. And it was decided at the commission level that we weren't really needing a pilot to run the airport as much as somebody to oversee the airport, take care of the basics, but also look at promotion of the airport and its improvement into the future and making it more of a destination. The recent announcement of the Port Colborne EV situation, there is also expected anticipation of more flights coming in because it's close for people, for executives and others that may potentially come in. So this is kind of a win-win. The other one was that a hangar was constructed for 5 airplanes, and immediately, just because of the delays in construction like everyone goes through, but they're all fully rented and going out, and actually another waiting list has occurred. The amount of money that was secured in the loan to build that hangar actually came in well under budget. And there is an intention to look at, because of demand for additional hangar space, to look at a modified expansion of additional hangar space, but kind of following on the mayor's plan for the MCC, they want to make it solar ready. In other words, look at the potential for inclusion of the panels on it in the actual design, which I think is a very smart. So these are all preliminary discussions and investigations going on. I did want to include the last 2 parts are, one, it was a thank you, and the chief from the fire department. Pelham Fire Department came out and actually did a training session on use of the defibrillator that was purchased for use at the airport. So thank you from that end. That was a kudo to the town. And finally, it's quite interesting, and this would be, I think, of interest to Councillor Eckert. The RCMP and the Niagara Regional Police Services Video Unit want to get involved in putting on a training session about a video on crime doesn't fly here, and to be targeted at waterways and small airports to protect them. What was brought to light was that in many cases it's quite surprising that middle of the night drop-offs of illegal goods and other things often occur more in the rural areas than they do in the more metropolitan areas. And to be honest, our airport is not a bad location because there's not a lot of houses, not a lot of people. Somebody can go in and touch and go and those kind of things. So they're going to use it as a training session for law enforcement personnel. The video that's produced is going to be strictly within the law enforcement. It's kind of like they don't want to tip off to somebody else what they've learned. So I thought that was another positive. It's not been confirmed, but its potential is to be used across Ontario by the Ontario Police Video Training Alliance. So that's kind of where we are with the airport as we stand right now. I have another meeting. The monthly meeting again is tomorrow night. There's a few other things that we're going to discuss going forward, and I am grateful to submit this to you for your review.
Great, thank you for that update, Councillor. First, if I may turn to Councillor Eckert, will we be looking forward to you achieving video stardom? Already a producer trying to get a hold of him.
That's right.
On his agent.
Yes.
I starred in 2 previous productions from the Ontario Video Alliance, and they got unfortunately, they got as many laughs as they did valuable training. So I doubt that I'll be asked to perform in this one. Thank you.
Okay. Any comments on the cadet afternoon?
It was wonderful. The last minute change, and actually they decided 10:30 Friday night that they didn't want to take a chance with the weather, which I appreciated, as did everyone else. The arena was full of family and friends, and the cadets put on a great show, some demonstrations, and I had the pleasure of attending with my youngest son, who's a petty officer in the first class in the Royal Canadian Navy, and he attended in dress whites, and he was quite an attraction as well. So he enjoyed it as well. He always enjoys that stuff, and he gave me a rolling commentary on everything that was going on. So, no, thank you, Councillor Kerr, for allowing me to attend in your place, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for those comments, Councillor Eckert. Any other questions for the councillor on his airport report? Not seeing any. Again, councillor, thank you very much for that. We appreciate the updates. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Hildebrand and seconded by Councillor Nizdik. Be it resolved, the council received the report from Councillor Kerr regarding an update on the Niagara Central Airport Commission for information.
Okay, thank you. Once again, any further comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I now have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Wink and seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider the following items: personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and labor relations or employee negotiations, one item.
Okay, thank you. Oh, so,
For discussion. and
oh, I'm
vote.
sorry. Any discussion on moving into in-camera? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just give us a minute. We'll stop the stream. We'll clear the chamber.